perfect and holy transcendent light of God. To accept this truth is to live this truth, is to change the mind about the mind, and to surrender the heart to be transformed into its true nature. What the ego has done, what its intention has been in the belief of separation, was to convince every beloved that the heart should not be opened, that the heart should stay as a defense mechanism. But this is also where all of the sadness comes from. This is where all of the worry comes from, and all the sense of being bereft and alone all comes from the agreement to keep the heart closed and defended. Except that the heart and the mind of God are naturally open, are naturally flowing, and are naturally connected to all of humanity and to all of the life force of God in all of its various expressions. So when every beloved says, I've made an agreement, without even knowing that there has been an agreement with the ego, saying, yes, I'll stay closed down, I'll stay protected, I'll stay defended, and see where it takes me. Except that it doesn't take you anywhere. It spins you in a circle of suspicion, caution, doubt, and the expectation that things will have a problem, because problems are normal to the ego identity. As a matter of fact, in the ego identity, when there is not a problem, it becomes as fearful as when there is. When there isn't a problem to focus on, there is a shaking of fear, because problems are where humanity thinks it has potential. That through potential, you will be the problem solver. And you keep going to problems in order to fix the problem and feel that that is where your worth comes from. But it's a ruse. It's a ruse that does not have a payoff, because as soon as you fix a problem, then you worry about fixing the problem, and you worry that your fixing isn't going to last, which it doesn't, because it's a temporary solution. But this is how the ego uses fear to keep everyone in line as a problem solver, as the one who believes in the problems, and that you're all alone. Because that is, in order to be the fixer, to be the problem solver, there must be separation in order to get the credit for being the problem solver. It would almost be, and everybody has probably experienced this, where you think of a solution for something and you're just really happy about your solution, and then somebody else comes up with the same solution, and your instant reaction is They took my solution. It's not for the solution that you're happy. It's because you want the credit for the solution. You want the attention of solving the problem, not actually being the problem solver or the problem being solved for whoever it is. It's all about the needing that sense of being the problem solver. But it doesn't bring love. It doesn't bring the truth to you of harmony and peace with every beloved. It doesn't allow you to enter into union and equality and to rest in that union and equality as enough. Part of what the ego does is convince every beloved that the only way to be enough is to be more than somebody else. That there are only so many of the top dogs at the top, and you have to be one of those in order to fulfill your obligation of your identity. But it doesn't. Because in the truth of love, it's equality that brings every beloved into the oneness with everyone else. And it doesn't matter who has the solution or who doesn't, because it's all in the oneness. So you are happy when another is inspired. It isn't coming from a place of, why did they get that inspiration and I didn't? Because it's the same inspiration. And whoever gets it is the truth of all. There's only love. So it becomes a journey that is completely upside down from the ego's intention of where you would walk with the ego instead of walking with God. Transcendent light of all creation. You share that title with all of humanity. You share that truth with every living organism in the universe. Transcendent light. You are everything and you have everything as the light of God. But when the world wants to be played with in the ego identity, it's then goes back to fighting for the supreme spot. So now we come back to the holy union of love and want to open to that holy union of love and become one with all creation as the rightful light of God. In celebrating the spiritual incarnation of Jose, whose birthday is celebrated tomorrow, that is the beauty of his light that was left to burn. And all of the hymns that he received were all for everyone. This being one of his hymns that called everyone to pay attention. Sister, brother, pay keen attention. Go very, very slowly. Do not mistake your path. Sister, brother, keep your feet on the ground. Be careful with your pride. Be careful with your sanity. Sister, brother, go very, very slowly. Be careful with the traps of life in your path. Sister, brother, journey with attention, sincerity in the heart, to walk well on this earth. Pay keen attention. This is what is being asked for from moment to moment, to pay keen attention. Because without the keen attention, you're just walking in the fog of the illusion of the ego that wants you to forget and not pay keen attention. Here I am declaring the love within my heart. Here I want to affirm the love of our Divine Mother. I'm here forever to love. Here in this school of love, I've come to give thanks to all divine beings. Within this light, our Mother leads the way, and I will forever praise and never aggrandize myself. I have been small with the size of love, but within this light, I step into the great love. To love together with all beloveds, all of us together praising God. And within this power, we give thanks to our Divine Mother and Father for the healing that we are receiving through the heart, loving in deep gratitude for all that is received. Eu aqui vou seguindo, declarando o amor dentro do meu coração. Eu aqui quero afirmar o amor de nossa mãe, para sempre eu amar. Aqui na escola do amor, eu venho agradecer a todos os seres divinos dentro da luz de nossa mãe. Para sempre vou louvar e nunca me agradecer. Aqui dentro do poder, devemos agradecer a nosso Pai, a nossa Mãe, as curas que vamos recebendo dentro do coração, amando e agradecendo. Declaring the love within your heart. Can you declare the love within your heart as you walk in the world? Or is that something that you think gets put aside to be shared in a private time? But God is actually calling to declare the love within your heart all the time. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, that you recognize and bask as you declare the love within your heart. Declaring the love within your heart is saying, I am this. I am this love, and I must declare it. I must raise it to its proper place of honoring and jubilation. It's not done in a private little place. It's done because you have to declare the love within your heart. It can't stay dormant. It can't stay contained. And how do you declare the love within your heart? Except through offering peace and through offering harmony and joy and listening to the voice of God give you the offerings to share. It's always being offered if you're willing to accept it. Declare the love within my heart in this schoolroom of love, because that's what it is. It's a schoolroom to learn and to be happy to learn, that every day is a new day of learning. Why aren't we screaming drunks? Because we're too busy declaring the love within the heart. The sun once glimpsed God's true nature and has never been the same. Thus, that radiant sphere constantly pours its energy upon this earth, as does he from behind the veil. With a wonderful God like that, why isn't everyone a screaming drunk? The guess is this: any thought that you are better or less than another quickly breaks the wine glass so that nobody can get drunk, because the thought of being better or less than somebody else breaks the glasses. That is the justification for the breaking of the glasses, because it doesn't allow you to go further with the idea of being a screaming drunk, instead of recognizing that there is only divine equality. When I say these words, any thought that you are better or less than another. Now, you may think, I don't ever think that. I don't think of myself as better or less. Really? How many times has there been a jealousy of noticing someone's talent, or someone how they take care of something, and you want to prove that you're as good as they are, or that you're more than they are, but your mind keeps going that you're less than they are, and then you fight with your own mind to become more than they are. Those are all the games that the ego plays. There is a teaching that I was called to bring tonight. It is a teaching that I took really deeply and seriously, because it was offered by one of my teachers. And through that divine teacher, that awake teacher, when I saw this teaching, it was so clearly a vibration of transformation that I followed the instructions and repeated it constantly, not as magic, but as a learning of truth. So here is the crux of it. And it's one that has to be repeated again and again, because it's a breaking of a trance. It's a trance that everybody steps into through the ego. And this is the breaking of that trance. Consciously or unconsciously, ceaselessly affirm, I am freedom from every limitation. I am the principle of timeless awareness. I am. No longer allow yourself to be enslaved by a personal life, a social sphere, and spiritual sphere, and it is to proclaim various limits, constantly repeating, I am not free. I am worthless. I am bound up in all of these categories of thought. This is actually what the ego is saying over and over and over again. To no longer allow yourself to be enslaved by the personal life, the social sphere, and the spiritual sphere as an idea, and to proclaim that the various limits that are constantly being repeated by the mind, mostly unconsciously, but sometimes very consciously, the ego mind is repeating over and over and over again, I am not free. I am worthless. I am bound up in all of these categories of thought and perceptions. So what happens with that? It's not magic. It's not about repeating it so that you just repeat it again and again with the idea that it's magic and the words have some kind of magic and you're not participating. This is actually you participating in the deep truth of the lies of the ego compared to the truth of God, and that they have no resemblance to each other at all. So I am bound up in all of these categories of thought and perception. I am superficial. I am incapable of transcendent insight. I am irrevocably immersed in family, career, and political concerns. This is not just verbal repetition, but a routine ritual invocation of limited existence by the entire body and mind of the falsely isolated individual consciousness. This is what the ego wants you to keep saying, you are not free in any way and that you are worthless, and wants you to stay completely connected to family, career, and political concerns. Because in those three is the world's agreements. The agreement that limitation is what you believe in. But this is not just a verbal repetition. This is a routine ritual invocation of limited existence by the entire body and the mind of the falsely isolated individual consciousness. What this is saying, and I'm not finished with it, but what this is saying is the ego is not dormant. It is not off to the side someplace. It is consciously repeating, ritualized repeating into your mind the separation from God. With the truth of God, you cannot be worthless. With the truth of God, you cannot be superficial. But the ego wants and needs you to be superficial, and needs you to be worthless, and needs you to be incapable of transcendent light and insight. When you believe that you are incapable of transcendent insight and light, you are agreeing with the ego that you are incapable, and that relationship with light is not possible for you, that you somehow were gypped and didn't get the truth, but you did. But this unconscious and sometimes conscious ritual is what the ego counts on, to keep bringing you back to being worthless and not being free. It becomes increasingly vivid and convincing. It has to. It counts on that it becomes more and more vividly and increasingly convincing that you can't allow yourself to be one with God, that you would not listen to the voice of God because you're listening to this other voice. There's a reason when you don't ask for guidance, it's because you already have guidance. It's in the constant repeating that you are not free and that you are worthless and that you are bound up in all of the thoughts of family, politics, and career. That's where the ego wants you to stay. So then, instead of that ritual, the ritual becomes, I know that supreme reality alone exists, and this transcendent knowing is in itself simply reality. You are affirming your relationship with the divine. You're not stepping back. You are not playing games with the ego and letting the ego have its way of being worthless and not being free. These are lies. But when you act out of those lies, when you believe those lies and you're listening to them because you're not listening to guidance, you're listening to this voice, and you're hearing this and telling yourself this over and over and over again, that you're not free and you're worthless, and that career, family, politics are the important parts of your identity, you're not able to hear the voice of love, that the supreme reality alone exists. The supreme reality alone exists. The other does not exist. No matter how much conversation you have with the ego, how many times you tell yourself you're worthless, you're without, you're not free, and all of this worldly identity is so important because that's what you have believed with the ego. But now you're asked to turn it around and affirm that the supreme reality alone exists. There is only one supreme reality. It is the reality of God. It is the reality of love. It is the reality of your heart and your open, free mind that is God's. This transcendent knowing is itself simply reality. The wisdom that you have available to you, which is yours, is being put aside to listen to the voice of the ego. To listen to the voice that says that you allow yourself to be enslaved by your personal life, your social sphere, and spiritual sphere. And it proclaims various limits. It proclaims them. It isn't just that you hear them going by sometimes or you hear them on TV. No, they're in your mind. They're in your mind and they are constantly telling you, proclaiming various limits, constantly repeating, I am not free. I am worthless. I am bound in all of these categories of thought and perceptions. This is not a condemnation of self. This is a a reality check. This is a breaking of the trance that the ego has put in place so that you are constantly listening to that voice. And this is the calling that no, you're going to counter that voice and listen to the guidance of the Holy Spirit, because that's where the truth of you exists, is in the guidance of the Holy Spirit. I am irrevocably immersed in family, career, and political concerns. This is not just verbal repetition, but a routine ritual of invocations. So when you consciously choose to refuse that invocation, that ritual, and you choose instead to accept that the supreme reality alone exists and this transcendent knowing is itself simply reality. God is life. God is love. And the guidance of the divine is yours. It's yours. It's not even that you have to prove your worth in order to open to the reality of God. It's there waiting for you if you will let go of this ritualistic repetition of your belief of not being free and not being worth the truth of God. It is increasingly vivid and convincing. If you're speaking to someone who is believing in problems, and it sparks within you that you believe in problems too, you have a matching set of problems, that right there is your indicator. The belief in problems says social is right, political is right, career is right. Yes, they're all filled with problems, but that's what I'm here, is to fix problems, because that keeps me occupied. And all the while, God is saying, there are no problems. You're being asked to accept the transcendent light of love as the center of your being, because that's what's true, and to let go of the roles that you have taken as real within the world. And how do you serve family if you are rejecting family? You're not rejecting the beloveds. You're rejecting the role. You're rejecting the idea that they be limited and have a limited space of truth within your mind and heart. You're being asked to see every beloved that you believed was a role of a family member, to see them as God's light, as God's creation, and that they're wandering in the desert of illusion, and you're the one who's being called to set them free, to see them in the light of who they truly are. That they are holding the idea that they are not free. They are holding the idea that they are worthless and that they are who you think that they were when you were a child. And they're not. And you're holding this unconscious and sometimes conscious place to keep repeating, even for them, that they're not free and that they're worthless. You may think that by giving them a role as a family member that you're giving them worth. You're not giving them worth. You're giving them a lie. you're giving them a false identity, and you're holding them away from the freedom and the worth of being the light of God, of being in reality with the supreme reality of light, and allowing them to learn of that light and holding that for them. This transformational declaration I used for at least a year, every day, all day. I am not worthless. I am not held prisoner. I am free. To keep repeating that I was free, to keep repeating that I was not worthless, there was an alchemical energy that came with it. And every time that I would say it, because I said it all day long, I could feel the strengthening of it. I could feel the truth coming and the light. And I could feel the grip of the ego starting to disintegrate. Was I doing something? I was declaring. I was affirming truth in its bottom line. And it had a chemical alchemy to it that transformed all the energy bodies. Not because it's magic, but because I was declaring the love within my heart. I was declaring that I was free. I was declaring that I could not be worthless because I was created by God. And so when I call you to this, it's really that you're no longer going to be able to go into the cracks and crevices with the ego and play the ego's game. The only caveat is that you have to invite the guidance of love. And when you invite the guidance of love, you're inviting truth. I am bound in these lies. I want to be unbound. I am declaring that I will not be bound. I was declaring the freedom of God's love. I was declaring that I could not be worthless if I was God's child, and I was God's child. Just for a moment, imagine yourself all day long saying, I am God's child. I am the light of God. I cannot be worthless, and I must surrender my preoccupation with politics, spirituality within the world, family, all of the ideas that the ego has put together that hold the ego in place. Sister, brother, pay keen attention. Go very, very slowly to not mistake your path. This is the not mistaking your path. Completely using this mantra as a defined ritual of transformation that you are participating in all day long. And that you do not allow the ego's game to be in charge. You don't invite it, and you don't invite it to stay. You affirm that you are not superficial, that you are incapable of not being transcendent light. You cannot be without that transcendent light. You are that transcendent light. You are proclaiming what is already true, and that you have just forgotten because you opened the door to the ego's direction, and you forgot to open the door to the guidance of love. Open the door to the guidance of love and affirm these truths. And eventually, the lies will disappear because you are not feeding those lies anymore. What was maybe not understood is that when you are not actively proclaiming truth, you are inactively proclaiming lies. You are never neutral. You have no neutral thoughts. So it's either the thoughts of love and truth, or it's the thoughts of lies. And when I was shown this teaching, it was a no-brainer. Literally, it was a no-brainer. All of those thoughts were running all the time. I am worthless. I'm incapable of seeing the light. I'm incapable of being the light of God. And I'm irrevocably immersed in family, career, and political concerns. Why was it that one of the first directions that I received, which was looking back, which was really way beyond my capacity, and yet guidance said, don't listen to the radio anymore. Do not pay any attention to the politics that are on the radio or anywhere else. And I stopped immediately listening to anything of the news. I did that because I was being called to do it, but it was also because there was a place in me that realized I'm afraid of being without that news. I'm afraid of what will happen in the world if I'm not on top of it, if I don't know what's going on. Well, in that, there was no trust in God. There was no trust in the divine movement of God. It was all fear that was running and believing that the ego had the answer. So when I stopped listening to the news, which lasted for about 4 years, it was a freedom that came through this freedom. I am freedom. I am free. I am not unworthy. I am the worth of God. I had to ingest the truth in a dominant way that I was participating, that it wasn't just walking around expecting magically that the truth would come to me in some way. No, I had to participate. I had to participate clearly and follow the truth of God in every way possible. And if it meant 50 times a day, so what? Why couldn't I repeat this 50 times? And every time that I repeated it, I brought I brought everything that I could to it. I brought my attention, I brought my heart, I brought my intention that I wanted to be in the truth of God. So I participated, more than participated. I was on board. And I took it as deeply as I possibly could, because I didn't want to waste another moment by being neutral and letting whoever wanted to talk to me just talk in whatever way they wanted to talk to me. So I could listen to the ego all day long, telling me I was worthless, telling me that there was no freedom, telling me that there was hardship, that the past was real, that my family was exactly what I thought of them. that it was all true, that the politics were real, that the career was real, that I had an investment in all of it. No, no, this was the lie. I was not here to agree to that the career was real, that family was real, that politics was real. This was all made up. Every one of those beloveds that I believed had an identity, they weren't that identity at all. I had made that up completely and given them all kinds of elements that I could then count on, but count on to be lies because I believed I was superficial. How could I not believe that I was superficial if I was paying attention to everything that was superficial? But God was saying, you are not superficial. And you are capable of transcendent light. You have the power to bring the truth of God into humanity. Align with that truth. And that I no longer was willing to be immersed in family, career, or political concerns. Not because of hatred, but because of love. Because I had to set those beloveds free. I was holding them hostage. They were not who I thought they were. How could they be? I made it up. And how could I remember God when I was making up and holding all these beloveds hostage, including everybody politically, holding them all in these roles that meant nothing, holding family members as family members. I didn't know who they were. I thought that they were, according to my story, who I thought they were. I thought they belonged in my story. They didn't belong in my story. I put them in that story. I didn't know what their journey needed to look like, and I could no longer impose on them these beliefs that I am not free, that I am worthless, that I am superficial. This was not a condemnation. This was a recognition of I have this beautiful gift that I have to ceaselessly affirm that I am freedom from every limitation. I am the principle of timeless awareness. I'm the principle of timeless awareness. You are that timeless awareness. You are the light of God. You have no limitation. You are free from every perceived limitation that you've made up. You have invited in the ego to run the show. And all that's being called for is to deny that lie. To deny the lie that the ego has any power at all other than the power you're giving to it. And then to open the door to that guidance, to the guidance that is wanting to show you the way to love, that wants to repeat with you that you are not bound, that you are free, and that God is with you in every moment, and that that's where you want to live. The sun once glimpsed God's true nature and has never been the same since. That is what is being offered, to never be the same again, of limitation or separation. Thus, that radiant sphere constantly pours its energy upon this earth as does he from behind the veil. Invite God to be in charge. Invite the divine spirit of love to teach you what is most helpful in every moment, and shut the door, shut the front door to the ego. No longer wanting for the ego to make false families, false careers, false politics, false relationships, false. When you're holding the power to bring freedom and light and worth to your heart, your mind, and to everyone. Consciously or unconsciously, ceaselessly affirm, I am freedom. Ceaselessly affirm. I didn't make those words up. Those came from the teacher that I found. Ceaselessly affirm, I am freedom from every limitation. I am the principle of timeless awareness. Now, the ego would say, you don't even know what that means. Why would you repeat that? Get back in your place where you belong, in a career, in a story. Stop thinking about being timeless awareness. No, that's where God wanted me, in timeless awareness. I must choose with God. I am freedom from every limitation. I am freedom. There cannot be a limitation that has my best interests at heart. They're all made up. They have no purpose. They have no value. And as you ceaselessly affirm that you are freedom, the rest has to fall away. That voice that kept saying, I'm not free, I am this, I am that, I am a person who has this role to play within career, politics, family. I have to play a role. No. You are the light of God. You are freedom itself. You cannot be limited. You cannot be worthless. And you are not bound in any of these categories of thought or perceptions. Categories of thoughts and perceptions, just the words themselves, means that you've made a box of categories with perceptions that you made up. For what? Here is God wanting to bring you that you are capable of the light, of being with insight into God's light. And that you are no longer willing to be immersed in family, career, or political concerns. This is a routine ritual invocation that you are called to affirm more than daily. It's imagine that you were kidnapped by a group that took you and put you in a closet and then told you all day long that you were incapable and that you were unworthy of anything of worth. That's the ego. That's the ego that took you into that closet and wanted to brainwash you into your identity. I'm not saying that for sinister reasons. I'm saying that because that's what the ego does. The ego says over and over and over again, all of the game playing beliefs of perceptions that have no truth to them. Can you hear that voice within that keeps saying you're incapable? That you cannot be the light of God, that you're worthless? Stick to what you know. Stay in the roles that you produced. No, you hold the freedom of humanity in your heart. And as you let go of these categories of thought and perceptions, you're opening humanity to a deeper truth. A routine ritual invocation of limited existence by the entire body and mind of the falsely isolated individual consciousness. How many people beloveds that were in concentration camps said the same things over and over and over again? And the ones who were able to say, I am freedom, I am the light of God. That's the truth. These beloveds don't know the truth. God is promising, I am freedom, I am the light of God, and I am the worth of God. That is the saving grace from any idea of restrictions, of any ideas of concentration camps, of prisons, of poverty. All of it has been made to believe that there is lack within your life. So that adds to that invocation. I cannot be without. I cannot be in scarcity. I am God. I am in God's abundance. The abundance of God flows through me because of my worth. I am not without. Feel if there's a resistance within, because if there's a resistance within, that's exactly what the ego is cheering. Your resistance to the truth of love. But once you take in this invocation, it opens to freedom. And it breaks the brainwashing idea of who you think you are and who you think anybody else is. And you start to listen to the voice of the divine guidance instead of the voice of the ego's insanity. Yes, you have a lot of beloveds to join with in the belief of unworth and lack of freedom. You can find lots of beloveds to join with that. But you're being called to open the doors of freedom for yourself and for all of humanity. That's how much power you have. And that's how much power there is in these ritualized invocations. They break through the trance. I accept the supreme reality alone exists, and this transcendent knowing is itself simply reality. I accept the reality of God. I accept the freedom of love itself. I think we are frightened every moment of our lives until we know the truth of God. I think we are frightened every moment of our lives until we know the truth of God. And this is the invocation to remember and get to know the truth of God. I am free. I am light. I am love. I hold the capacity of the universe within. I cannot be less than God made me. I am free. Allow this teaching to rest in your heart, and that you can't help but declare its truth all day long. One heart in freedom, in love.